Well, it's a fear that a lot of us have. You pick up the phone and somebody on the other line is saying that they're someone and they need your information, and then you give it to them and all of a sudden you become a victim of a scam. But Kelley Community is here to talk about ways that we can prevent that from happening. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. So how are these scammers calling?
So the two things that have really come up recently, there's the neighborhood spoofing. So it's a call that comes in and it looks like it's a local call. So for us, it has the 903 prefix and you think, oh, I must just not have them in my phone, and so you answer it.
Right.
And then the other way, and probably the scariest for financial institutions and your financial information, is called a robocaller. And they're the ones that are calling and pretending to be your financial institution or a government agency, trying to get that private information.
Well, now if somebody does call me claiming that they are from a bank or a credit union, how do I vet them, or how do I make sure that they are who they say that they are?
Great question. So I always tell people, as soon as they call and start asking private information or personal information, shut down the conversation. Be polite and say, hey, I'm going to call you back, and hang up.
And then hang up.
And then call your financial institution, your bank or your credit union. Ask for somebody else, not them, and call it a number you know, not the one that came in on your cell phone. And verify. If your financial institution called you, they're going to have a note who called and why they called, so you'll get to the bottom of whatever the problem was. And then if it wasn't, then okay, now be put on notice and start watching your account, make your financial institution aware that somebody was trying to get some of your information.
Okay, now are there specific questions that they will call and start asking you about?
So usually some of the questions, they don't jump right out. Sometimes it's not the most obvious. They don't jump out and say, what's your social?
Right. They work their way into that.
Correct.
Okay.
They eventually get there. They'll know enough information. You know, with social media, there's so much out there.
Right.
And so they'll know enough information to start asking different questions and trying to get to some of your personal, like, do you have an account there, and what types of accounts, and maybe mother's maiden name, and those types of things that you use associated with your financial account.
Okay. Now, what are, I guess, some ways that we can protect our financial and personal information?
So there's three huge ways I think you should do that when it comes down to your financial information. First of all, I think you should have a passphrase attached to your account at any financial institution. So if you're going to call and get information from your credit union or bank, then before they'll give you that information, you need to have given them a passphrase that you came up with, something that makes sense to you. And then you need to protect that passphrase. Don't just say it out in public in the mall with people around. Really pay attention when you're using that information. And so that's one way to protect. Another way to protect is to make sure you have really strong passwords on all your online accounts.
Okay.
Don't use your name, your birthday, anniversary, all that stuff that's seen on social media. Use a combination of special characters, numbers, letters, both capital and lowercase, nothing that can be found on social media. The stronger it is, the better you're protected, the more sophisticated it is.
And what does this do in terms of highlighting how important it is to just know your credit people whenever you go into a local bank or a local credit union and establish that relationship with them? I guess, how does that play into protecting you?
Absolutely. So the better your financial institution knows you, the better off you are. We know your habits, we know your voice, we know your face, and so when somebody tries to call and pretend to be you and give us information, then we can recognize and say, that voice isn't the voice I know.
That doesn't sound right. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. All right. Now, we're going to turn it over now to meteorologist Eric Mangus. A beautiful look at the tower cam with all those clouds. Eric, is the rain going to continue?
I don't think it's much better than